What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Consciously Curious, where we dissect those that are thriving in their passion. On today's episode, we have Mr. Brian Alexander, owner and founder of CrossFit Illumine. We're here in Niles. It's my round two here. If you saw the episode of Dr. Demir Simiak, the chiropractor. But today we're going to deep dive into the world of CrossFit and where it's come and how long Brian's been in the game for and where he hopes to take it. Right?
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Where I'd like to start, can you take us back to where this maybe fitness journey came and started for you?
Yeah. So I'd always been into just working out, like typical gym rat type of guy.
Okay.
But global gym.
Oh, okay.
So I started maybe when I was 18 years old.
Okay.
And did the whole Bally's thing, if you remember.
Oh, yeah. Are they around anymore?
No, they're gone.
Okay.
But it was always, bench on Mondays, back on Tuesdays,
yeah.
shoulders Thursdays.
Sure.
And, when you're younger, it's pretty cool to do that and
Right.
get really strong,
Right.
start looking better, all that stuff.
Yes.
But it's all show and no go.
Okay.
Right? And it works when you're young. Like anything works when you're young. So I'm 38 now.
Okay.
So twice, or I guess half as young, right? Twice as old, we can call it. But yeah, so I would just do the regular gym rat thing. I did that for, a good 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
And it stopped working after a while.
Like plateaued?
Yeah.
Or did you lose motivation?
So all of that,
Okay,
right? Like
okay.
losing motivation, plateauing. When you
Okay.
keep doing the same thing
yeah,
over and over again.
yeah.
Kind
Kind of surprised it lasted that long.
Well, yeah. I mean, you go in spurts, right? Like you
Right.
get motivated, you go hard, and then you
Right.
get demotivated, take some time off, maybe go kind of haphazardly.
Yes.
But when you do the same thing over and over again, like it's really difficult to get mentally engaged.
Right.
Like just
I
to
agree.
continue to be mentally engaged.
I agree.
So, it wasn't until I was about 27 or 28 when I really started to think like, wow, it's not working really too well for me anymore. And it was a really weird thing because by that time I'd been working out for so long that people would always ask me like for advice about working out.
Okay. This guy knows what he's what
I
he's
looked
doing.
like, because again, all show, go, like with a shirt on, I looked like pretty
Right.
built.
Okay.
But as I was getting older, I was kind of like gaining a little bit of weight. And of course, my lifestyle was a little different
Sure.
back then. I was a nightclub promoter when I was younger.
Oh, okay.
Right. And then I went into sales at CDW. So there was the happy hour thing every night, drinking a lot,
Sure.
steak dinners, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I began to kind of feel like a fraud because people kept asking me for advice. And I'm like, oh my God.
Imposter syndrome.
Well, yeah, a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't really feel like I had the answers because I was still working on it myself.
Yeah.
But I'd still give like the advice that I knew
Yeah.
that worked. And it wasn't until I went to Miami for my bachelor party and I saw a picture of myself in the pool with my shirt off when I got back from the bachelor party. And I'm like, oh my God, like I run for like a half hour to 45 minutes every morning. I go back at lunch and lift weights, and I'm like, this is what I look like, really? And it's not until you actually like see it, a snapshot or a photo of you where you're like, oh wow, this is not good. And it wasn't like I was horribly overweight, but definitely not worth the 2 hours that I was putting in.
Okay.
So immediately when I got back from my bachelor party after the wedding, I waited till after the wedding, I started looking for the nearest CrossFit gym near me.
Okay.
'Cause I'm like, okay, well, whatever I'm doing is not working. Friends had told me to try CrossFit.
Sure.
Probably for like a year prior to that moment.
And why did you hesitate for that year?
It was just like I kind of was comfortable in my routine. I knew what I was doing. I was kind of like at the top of like that pyramid of like, okay, I know what I'm doing. People look up to me and respect me.
Okay.
And fear of not knowing what you're doing, fear of starting over.
Okay.
Also, like, it sounded crazy. Like, run a mile, do pull-ups. I was like, I'm almost 30 years old. Like, I'm way past that. I can't do that. That's for like young, crazy people, right?
Okay.
But, at a point of desperation, Google searched CrossFit near me. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do it.
Try
I'm going to
it.
try it.
Yeah,
And, it was all that kind of the ego of the beginner fear. You don't want to look dumb in front of people.
Right.
It's a real thing. It's pretty.
And that's coming from someone who has an athletic background.
Yeah.
A gym background.
Yeah, but again, it's like one of those things where you kind of feel comfortable in your own skin.
I get it.
Even if you're not happy with the way you look.
I get it, yeah.
Sometimes you'd rather just stay there
than
drop your ego and admit you need help.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm glad I did, because after literally the first intro workout, I'm like, I was laying on the ground after
with a pool of sweat.
Just completely destroyed me.
Right.
And I'd never worked that hard in my life probably, but at least in the last decade, I haven't worked that hard.
Right.
And I'm like, this is cool. This is it.
Okay.
Like I can do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn. And how long did you keep that up for before, like what clicked to the point where you wanted to branch out and do your own thing?
And
you were still in sales at that time, so
yeah.
it's like maybe you felt something in your sales job that like this isn't, were you not fulfilled in that, and like you wanted to do this full time? Like how did that work?
Yeah, so it's actually they both kind of played into each other really well. So when I went to CDW, I was a nightclub promoter for a while in my early 20s.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Made a lot of money.
Yeah.
We did really well. I learned a lot about marketing and people and all of that stuff. But, it was not a sustainable lifestyle nor career.
Late nights, yeah.
And ended up asking a friend of mine to help me get a job at CDW.
Okay.
And he was pretty successful there, and he's still there right now. And he got me the job, but I hadn't had like a real job ever in the corporate world, ever. And I went from, having the nightclub promoter life to like having to
9 to 5, right?
Go to 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Also having to answer to somebody for the first time, which I hadn't done in, a very long time. Structure, having a boss. But beyond that, it was phone sales. So it was inside sales, cold calling.
Oh.
And I'm like extroverted when I need to be.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely more introverted.
Same.
I don't like confrontation. I don't like bothering people.
Same,
I don't necessarily love talking on the phone. And I sucked. I was awful.
Okay.
And every day I would go to work, and you'd have to make, X amount of calls, and you have to spend so much time on the phone, and they tracked it all. Oh. And I'm like, my girlfriend, who is my wife now, but the girlfriend at the time, Charlene, who is my wife, I go home every day. I'm like, honey, I can't do this. Like, this is not for me. And she just encouraged me to go back, and I'd go back with my tail between my legs every day.
Okay.
And that went on for about a year, and I started to get a little better, started to pick it up. And it wasn't until I started CrossFit that I really, really began to understand the growth mindset.
Okay.
So up until that point, I think I had always had the fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset of just thinking that people were just kind of born better at specific things.
Yeah.
Or maybe like if you had a rock star salesperson, that maybe it was like, well, they're just super outgoing.
Okay.
And, they don't mind rejection. And
so you were planning, if it wasn't for CrossFit, you were planning on climbing the corporate ladder at CDW?
Well, so I did.
Oh.
And it's actually because of CrossFit that I did climb
the
corporate ladder.
Okay.
And I didn't climb the corporate ladder in a way of jumping positions, but in sales, they started you at like 25 grand a year. Mm-hmm. And then you had to go build your empire, right? So a lot of pressure to like produce.
Yeah.
For the first year, I was horrible, just awful. But then after I started CrossFit, I put 2 and 2 together where, you come into the gym at CrossFit and you suck. Mm-hmm. But you just show up every day and you do the work, and little by little, you begin to see that work kind of pay off, right?
Yeah.
So it's just putting the reps in, literally,
Interesting.
And just working on specific skills. And that really connected the dot for me to say, okay, well, if it works in, fitness, it's got to work everywhere.
Okay.
So I started like really focusing on doing better at CDW and like learning the craft of sales.
So you seeing this growth at CDW gave you some hope and maybe reinvigorated some?
For sure.
Yeah. Did you feel fulfilled at CDW?
To a point.
Oh, to a point. Okay.
To a point. So we went from I went from 25 grand a year to making top 10% in the company for an executive account manager, making a ton of money.
Right.
And it was awesome, super successful on paper.
Right.
But there was still something missing. So I thought like, as soon as I make this money, like then I'll be happy.
Right.
So when I began making the money, I'm like, okay, I'm challenged, but I'm not fulfilled. And I have all the material things that I want, but I'm not fulfilled. So
Interesting.
the whole time I was doing, CrossFit and then working at CDW, it was about a 2-year,
Okay.
2.5 year
Overlap.
overlap.
Kind of thing. Okay. Do you have, so it kind of sounds like, do you have a live to work mentality or a work to live mentality?
It's changed.
Okay.
I lived to work before.
Right.
And after making a ton of money and seeing like that whole world,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I need to do something that has meaning.
That fuels you in a different way than money can't do.
Right. There's no amount of money that could fill like the void in your soul for not kind of like fulfilling your purpose in life.
Right.
So I had been an entrepreneur prior to promoting and then prior to CDW.
Mm-hmm.
And friends would just ask me, they're like, when are you going to open your own gym? After I've been doing
Without
CrossFit.
you making that connection prior?
Well, yeah, because,
Did you have that thought of like wanting to open your own gym or?
No, because I had such a bad experience with my first business.
Oh, what was it?
It was a restaurant.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
restaurant and a lounge.
Okay.
It just didn't work out well. We opened it with friends, had a falling out.
Sure.
So it kind of like ruined my my desire
Okay.
to do that, because up until that point I'm like, oh yeah, I should just take like my passion and then make it a business and everything should work, right? But the restaurant and then a supplement shop that I opened didn't work out.
Okay.
So when people would ask me like, when are you gonna open a gym? I'm like, I'm not gonna ruin this. This is like the best
I
thing
love
that's
this. Yeah,
happening
yeah,
in my
yeah,
life.
yeah.
It's literally changed me as a human being.
Wow.
Right? So I became just a better person, better human being because of CrossFit. Not only better at CDW, better sales, account manager.
Sure.
But just it really taught me the value of hard work.
Okay.
Right? And I'm like, I'm not gonna ruin this. Like you're nuts. But they planted the seed.
Right.
And then little by little I'm like, oh man, I went from I'm not gonna do this to okay, maybe I should do this.
I would regret if I didn't try.
Over a period of time.
Right.
And then it came to a point where like, oh God, I have to do this. Like,
Okay.
and I'm still at CDW.
Did you ease your way into it? Like, did you kind of get, ask questions around people that already own some boxes? And
Yeah, like the beauty of it was I belonged to a gym.
Yeah.
CrossFit Wilmette, they're still there.
Okay.
Amazing gym.
Oh, okay.
Great people. I love them to death to this day. And also within CDW, I used to travel all of the time for work.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'd go to Colorado, I'd go to the state of Washington, Oregon, and be within those travels while I was doing CrossFit, I'd always drop into gyms.
For sure, yeah.
So I had the opportunity to drop into maybe 20 or 30 different
Across the
types of
country,
gyms
yeah,
across the country. And I got a really good idea of like what worked, what didn't work, what I would want if I owned a CrossFit gym, how I would, message it, how I would brand it.
Right.
And, after all of that, I'm like, oh, God, I can do this. Like,
I gotta say, I love the light bulb, the barbell.
You
and
like
the
it?
light bulb.
Okay, you noticed
or
it.
the dumbbell and the light bulb. I love that.
okay, my wife designed the logo, and we've had members up until, this point. We've been open 6 years in May, and some members don't even know that that's there. So it's awesome that you noticed it.
No, I loved it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they planted the seed, and you saw what you liked and what you didn't like. How do we get the ball rolling? How do we get that clientele? Or did you have that logic to be like, I'm gonna dive all in, both feet, and open a gym, or pump the brakes? I gotta find some people that would actually come.
No. So we began looking for spaces.
Oh, okay.
After, this was in 2012.
Okay.
So 2019 now. We began looking for spaces. I started to do my research on okay, well, what villages are zoned, what areas are zoned properly, what is rent gonna be, how many members would I need, and we actually settled on a space before we opened that's next to a martial arts, like a MMA place, a local one.
Uh-huh.
And we were ready to sign a lease. It was like a 3,400 square foot gym, pretty awesome location, and ready to sign the lease. We actually pre-signed up 10 people for our on-ramp program.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And the lease fell through because the MMA place didn't want competition, like fitness competition.
And they were the owners of the building, or
Not the owners of the building, but they had a right of refusal for other tenants that compete, right?
Okay, all right.
So we went from having like really high hopes to like, oh God, we have 10 people signed up that paid us for this on-ramp,
Yeah.
and we can't deliver it. So luckily enough, CrossFit Wilmette owners let us rent their gym
Oh, okay.
to do our first on-ramp, and that was January of 2013.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Wait, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I mean, MMA, it's not as you wouldn't be as competitors as like another CrossFit gym.
Right.
How
right.
crazy is that?
Yeah. But I guess everything kind of
And
happens.
they didn't have that mentality of like, oh, they're gonna steal like our clients. and
Yeah,
things.
I never asked. I never talked to him, about it. It's just, it is what it is,
Okay,
right?
wow.
So we ended up doing our first on-ramp people with about 10 people
Okay.
at a different gym.
Okay.
So now we still don't have a space. It's January of 2013, and I was frantically looking now. I'm
Right.
like, oh God, like, well, these people are going to graduate and they're going to want to do CrossFit
going, yeah.
afterwards.
Right.
And we did group on-ramps at the time.
Okay.
And kept looking, and it took us until May to find our original space.
Wow.
Maybe
what
April
did
or
they
May.
do in the meantime then?
They had to stop.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not ideal at all. And actually, two of them are still members here,
Wow.
which is crazy.
Wow. Loyalty. Okay.
So it took me like 4 or 5 months to find our first location, which was right down the road on Tui and Lehigh.
Okay.
And I'm like, you know what? I just need anything. I just need like a room to host CrossFit. I don't care what it
Yeah.
is. And we found a 1,700 square foot garage.
Nice.
Garage door, you walk in, it's tiny, but it was perfect.
Right.
And we just opened then, and we like just blew up from the beginning. We started having, 10, 15, 20 people on ramps consistently every month.
Wow.
And within the first 2 months, I'm like, oh God, like this place is not going to be big enough.
What a
We're
good
going to have
problem
to start looking for another place.
Yes.
But it's crazy because at the time I had to pay for a full year up front for the rent for the original space.
So
because
you
I had no history of being in business, and there was somebody else looking at the 1,700 square foot space.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, I need this. I'll pay you a whole
at
year.
that time, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And the landlord's like, done.
What'd you do? Did you break the lease? Did you move? Pay the rest of the lease and then you moved?
So
or-
we ended up moving here
Yeah.
in October of the same year.
Wow.
So we didn't even stay 5 or 6
And-
months, and we just
What
had
a
to
good.
leave.
It's a good problem to have.
It was a good problem.
What do you think was the main driver behind the constant flow of on ramping?
I think it was just like the energy and the momentum.
Yeah. At that time, that the CrossFit was like hot.
It was just
Or it was just getting hot? Okay.
Just getting hot and
Okay.
a little less fringe, a little more accessible to the average
Mm.
person. But I think really people saw my obsession with it on social media while I was a member at the other gym, and I would
Okay.
just continue to post. And they saw my progression, like they saw me lose
Okay.
30 pounds.
Okay.
Saw my bachelor party picture in the pool, and then saw me with like an 8-pack.
Before and after, yeah.
And I was talking about like paleo nutrition at the time and just eating healthier and
Right.
lifestyle. And I think that 2 years just built so much momentum within my own like little group and base.
Interesting.
And then their base and their base.
And these are people that either know you or maybe 1 or 2 people removed. Is that how
Yeah.
that worked? Okay.
And a lot of them were the people that, kind of followed me into the nightclub, debauchery, right?
Wow, look at that.
So I always joke around. I spent my 20s kind of leading people into debauchery, and then my 30s I spent leading them back to health and fitness, right?
That's amazing. That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so as it was growing, what other like issues did you face any issues at that time?
Yeah, it was rapid growth. It was trying to figure the business part out.
Yeah.
My wife was pregnant with my first daughter, so this was 4.5 years ago, where
Okay.
my first daughter was born. But the year leading up to it, we'd only been open for a little bit, and we got pregnant, luckily.
Yeah.
And it was just trying to figure everything out. Like, okay, well, she was like, if I'm like the visionary, she was like the integrator,
Okay.
right? So she's the one that like
Boots on the ground
made
kinda
everything
thing,
happen.
yeah.
I'm like the person like, we should do all this stuff.
Yes, the dreamer.
The dreamer, right? The architect and all of that. And, she stepped back, and we didn't really have somebody to fill that role.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it was
yeah.
difficult. We had like the systems and processes. We didn't have the right person to fill the
For
role.
sure.
And within CrossFit gyms at the time, especially, it was a lot of people that just were like chipping in and helping. So part-time coaches, part-time employees,
Okay.
working an hour or two a week just to help you
Wow.
out, filling gaps. And you can't really build a business and rely on people that only have an hour or two to give,
Right.
especially when your wife was like the full time. So it was challenging, but we found a way to make it work.
I get
Yeah,
that.
everyone kind of stepped up.
What do you have to do to include CrossFit's trademarked, right? So like, what does that entail?
It's affiliate model, so it's not like a
Okay.
franchise where, let's say, Orange Theory.
Okay.
If you franchise Orange Theory, well, one, you pay a lot of money, but they tell you exactly how to do it, right? They tell you how you have to run it. With the affiliate model, you just pay for the name, and then you run it as you see fit.
Okay.
So there's cream that rises to the top,
Yeah.
which is kind of like Greg Glassman. He's a libertarian. He's like, look, the cream's going to rise to the top. Everyone else is going to have to raise their game,
Yeah.
and otherwise it's going to be apparent. And he doesn't mind if you open like next door to a CrossFit gym, very free market. Whereas like, an Orange Theory or any other
They're like,
franchise
"Oh,
would be like,
there's
no,
another
this
one, right?"
territory is
Okay.
here. They protect that, right?
Okay.
But with the affiliate model, you get some really, really amazing things from it because it really promotes entrepreneurship and
Yeah.
creativity and all of that. But you also get like the negative. So there's no quality control. And, CrossFit could get a really bad reputation if, some gym in your area, maybe they're not as well informed, maybe they're not as educated in, actual movement.
Okay. So injuries.
Injuries, yeah.
prone,
And
okay.
just how you apply CrossFit methodology is different everywhere, which is beautiful, but also,
It's
it could
room for misinterpretation.
misinterpretation. Yeah. It's the safe way to put it.
So when prospective clients are coming in, what questions should they ask, or if they don't know what the questions to ask, what kind of answers would you provide them?
Yeah. So like 6 years ago versus
Yeah,
now,
I'm sure it's different.
it's evolved
Right.
quite a bit.
Right.
There's companies like Two Brain Business who really focus on the CrossFit gym. So they really mentor people on the business side of owning a gym rather than just like making it a social club,
Yeah.
right? Because in the beginning, it was kind of like social clubs and, it wasn't really a full-fledged business for people.
At the same time, I've been here a few times, and you can feel the camaraderie in the room.
Yeah.
And part of it is a social time, and you get
It
your
is.
workout in, but
Yeah.
then you like connect, and like you guys
Yeah.
are friends outside of here, and like that's
Right.
amazing.
Right, it is. But if you're going to charge $200 a month, you also have to deliver on value.
Right,
Right. It
right,
can't,
right,
it can't
right.
just be the social. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So 6 years ago the question would have been, do they have an on-ramp? Because 6 years ago, gyms were still just letting people come off the street and try CrossFit
Okay.
without having any, proper training or understanding how to do the movements. Nowadays, everybody kind of has an on-ramp. We do one-on-one. We evolved from doing big
Wow.
groups to one-on-one.
Really tailored then, yeah.
Yeah,
So, and what are the main movements or tests within an on-ramp?
All of the fundamental movements. We do 6 one-on-one sessions all the way through 10 if they
Oh,
need it
wow.
or want it. But, we start from the basics,
Yeah.
the air squat,
Right.
the push-up. If you can't do a push-up on the ground, we're going to teach you how to scale it and do it off
sure.
of a box. Pull-up, ring row, all the way
Okay, okay.
through to like the technical stuff like Olympic lifts.
Wow.
And then, we offer nutrition coaching now.
Oh, nice.
We've been doing that for about 3 years. So the offering from CrossFit gyms has kind of evolved quite a bit as well. Not all of them do it, of course, because there's no standard. It's just the cream rises
that's
to the
thanks
top.
to the free market.
Right.
Interesting. That's really empowering. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are initially intimidated by, they walk in and they see people doing Olympic lifts and they're like, wow, this isn't for me, right? And
Yeah.
then, especially with no gym background.
Right.
But the on-ramping, I'm sure, helps a lot.
It does, for sure.
Damn. What else can boxes or CrossFit gyms do to branch out
So just to attract new members or
and retain?
retain. So you really have to focus on, what we call the client journey and just paying close attention to from the moment when they sign up. Keeping them engaged for the first 90 days is like crucial. There could be the effect of like an established group
Right.
of
Yeah.
people and then the new person entering the group.
Right.
And no matter how inviting and welcoming the established group members are, there's still like this little divide that the new member, even if it's not a reality, if it's a reality for them, they might feel like an outsider. So like the established group would be like, no way, we're the most inviting people in the world. But from a human psychology standpoint, if that person joining the group feels like an outsider, even if they're wrong about the whole situation, it's their reality, right?
Yeah.
So it's challenging to you really have to build a culture around welcoming, but you also have to have the systems and processes to place, the checkpoints, to make sure you're engaging with newer members really frequently.
Yeah. I don't know if you probably still have it somewhere, but last time I was here, there was like not really maybe a leaderboard of like how the stats of all the clients in here. Right?
Yeah, so it's all digital on a company called Waterfy.
But is it posted up as well somewhere? Like
it's all some gyms have them manually posted. That's like the old school way of doing it. Ours is digital.
But like digital, like you have it on a TV somewhere? 'Cause that's what it was before.
And so since we're remodeling our little athlete lounge, but normally there's TVs up.
There's
but
some
also
accountability with that.
There is.
Now that when it's public, when it's like just on your phone, only you can see it. I mean, if you have that internal like drive to like, I got to be better for sure. But when other people are like looking at it,
it's a good and bad thing.
There's a good competitive edge to it.
Right. If people are motivated by it, right? Because it could be demotivating to people too. And we've seen that. I mean, being open 6 years, the things that you know to be true for yourself are the exact opposite for others. And it's not a good or bad thing. It just is.
It is what it is.
Is what it is.
Yeah, not everyone has that initial growth mindset. But I'm sure part of this and your mission is to change that, is not only their bodies, but their mentality.
Yeah, and CrossFit is, to me, that's why I knew I had to open a gym. It was a CrossFit gym specifically. It's a vehicle to like self-discovery and self-awareness and just growth, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you do CrossFit or if you can find that in any other, there's so many other avenues that you could take to find it. Yoga, Orange Theory, whatever it is. Just having a vehicle to help you continue to put in effort, look in the mirror, maybe assess whether or not you are happy with the effort that you're putting in and that the effort that you're putting in is yielding the results that you want. And then being honest with yourself and saying, okay, well, could I have tried harder, or could I have worked in a better, a more intelligent way?
Yeah. Do you schedule like one-on-ones like with these, like so for retention or for just checking in with people?
Yeah, we do goal setting sessions, athlete check-ins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dang. What does it take to be a coach?
So we have a coach in training program. Obviously, you have to get your level 1 certification.
And is that you got to go somewhere, or you can do it here? Or?
You have to go to they have traveling level 1 staff seminar.
Okay.
And usually it's they host one in an area every month.
Oh, okay.
So that's like the minimum requirement. But it's just like a weekend certification, right?
Okay.
So we knew that wasn't necessarily enough for us. So we have a coaching training program.
Okay.
And then there's specific criteria that they have to meet for how many hours that they put in for shadowing, how many hours they put in for being shadowed by an existing coach.
Sure.
It's a little higher in terms of like the point of entry for our coaches.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I just remembered this, but like, why are dues so expensive?
Dues for the gym.
Dues for the gym, for membership, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I were to guess, it's obviously this large space, the equipment, as well as the affiliate to using the CrossFit name.
Yeah, the affiliate fee is like next to nothing.
Oh, is it? Okay, never mind then. Okay.
So really what you're getting, I mean, you're paying for results, right?
Okay.
That's like the bottom line. You come in, you're paying for results, but it's really small group personal training. So,
it's tailored.
There's no open gym. It's not like an export where you pay $40-$50 a month and you go in and you just do your own thing.
Yeah.
Like here you come in, it's a regimented, class schedule. The coach takes everybody through mobility, warm up and movement prep, teaches you a new skill. We're working on strength. So the programs are really well put together.
Okay.
To show really good progress.
Okay.
So people get results, and that's why they keep coming back, right? Like anybody will try anything once, but if they don't get results and if you don't make this like the best hour of their day, they don't have to come back. They can go anywhere. And then and that's when somebody might just say, I'll go to export But at export, there's no direction, right? There's no accountability unless you pay a personal trainer. But then, you're back up to $75, $80 an hour, right? Or more, really, because an hour is, $80 an hour for personal training.
That's interesting. But for someone coming off the street without any prior knowledge, it is a steep price to pay.
Right.
But it seems like you guys have other amenities to attract people. Things like kombucha. Things like an in-house chiropractor.
Yeah.
Right? Nutrition expert.
Yeah.
So,
and those are all really less amenities and more compliments to help people get results, right? Except for the coffee is like a fun little thing, right? And the kombucha is a fun little thing. But, Dr. Demir, everything we do, we want to do in the best way possible.
Right.
So we don't do contracts here, which is amazing. So we have to keep people making progress. We got to make sure this is the best hour of the day. And then we have to make sure we don't hurt people.
Yeah.
So to do that, you have to do it really intelligently, right?
Yeah.
Especially without contracts. So Demir is able to proactively help people and kind of train our coaches to help implement CrossFit in a way that we don't hurt people.
Right.
And we keep them moving well for the longest period of time, right?
Yeah.
Nutrition is to help accelerate results because you can come in and work out and do highly intense workouts, but if your diet is poor, you're going to perform poorly, one, but you might never look the way you want.
Yeah.
And really most people come in here and they want to look better. They want to feel better. They want to tone up. So they don't want to learn how to do a snatch. That's not why they come in here.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that stuff is it's just different ways to achieve stimuluses.
Right.
Also add novelty.
Yeah.
And if you golf, if you hit a driver, you suck in the beginning, and then you become obsessed with the drive. You're I'm going back to the range, and you still suck, but you're still golfing, right? Similar to CrossFit, where snatches are part of an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
But the general population can snatch with a relatively light weight, and it's more finesse and technique than it is strength. So it really is it's a skill that I can refine and really think about and work on. It's not just brute force. It's not just sweating on the ground. It really takes, quality effort. You can't just hit
intent, right?
Intent, deliberate movement, right? So you can't just hit 1,000 golf balls and become a good golfer.
You got to think about how you swing.
You have to hit 1,000
front swing,
deliberate
all
golf
that.
balls, right?
Right.
So, nutrition helps accelerate the actual results, but also fuels people for this. But when people want to tone up, you can't just work out. You have to add nutrition.
Interesting. Do you think, and I doubt you will, but do you think you'll ever drop this will be anything more than just CrossFit?
We've done many. So because CrossFit is a methodology that is interpreted differently everywhere you go.
Yeah.
I have an affinity to CrossFit because CrossFit changed my life.
Yeah.
But we have an Olympic lifting only barbell club. We have a boot camp called Spark that doesn't involve barbells. We have our nutrition program.
Yeah.
We have a Fit Over 50 group. So, CrossFit is kind of like what we say CrossFit is. Every gym is a reflection of the gym owner's philosophy of what CrossFit is.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean?
Yes. What do you think is the current perception of CrossFit in the public?
I think now it's a little different because there's so much competition for high intensity interval fitness type of things. So you have F45, you have Orangetheory, you have, any other, name that you can throw out there. There's a lot more competition in that space. I'd still argue it's not as effective as CrossFit is, but a lot of people are kind of emulating what CrossFit's done because really it's all about community.
Yeah.
And you have to show people results. You have to allow them to work hard, make progress. But the community is what keeps people coming back. The camaraderie is what binds people together and what keeps them coming back for 7 years.
Yeah.
Why would somebody, remain a member at a gym for 7 years if they weren't happy there, seeing results still after 7 years?
Right.
It's because, they're challenged, they see results, they have a ton of friends here. It's the best hour of the day. It's all of that combined. But I think now CrossFit is kind of thrown into that pool of just high intensity. where it's a little more difficult to differentiate yourself, because before it was, go to export and bodybuild and do cardio, go do like a little step aerobics class, or do CrossFit. And CrossFit was like, yeah, CrossFit. And it was a clear divide.
Right.
But now, Export, Lifetime, they have like their CrossFit knockoffs. And
they do.
It's fine. It's good. I really like the Orange Theories because they do an amazing job with marketing, and they get so many people off of the couch. So like the more people that are off of the couch doing fitness,
that's always a good
the
thing.
better. And then, people eventually get bored running on a treadmill and, doing the same routine with the stations. And like, we're kind of like that next step up.
Interesting.
For the people that want something more.
Yeah.
More novelty, learning new skills. So I think like, the last 3 years has been interesting because it's taken away some of the people that would have joined initially from like a new member standpoint, coming off the couch. But I think now that
they're also coming from other places.
They're coming from other places.
That's
now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So especially with the clients that have been here for 7 years, have they plateaued? And if so, how did they break through the plateau? Are they changing up the movements? Because, I mean, you can't technically plateau if you're always trying to beat your time and things like that, right? But as far as like changing the mental stimulus of like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
How have they like stuck around?
It's really like our programming.
Okay.
Because every day is constantly varied. It's different.
Okay.
Now there's like a meta design behind it.
Right.
So there's like, month cycles, 3-month cycles.
Okay.
That are geared towards specific outcomes, on the back end.
Yeah.
But they don't see that. So, but they keep showing up. They keep doing different things. They keep refining new skills.
Yeah.
They some people choose to be competitive. Other people just use this as like their outlet, their best hour of their day. They sweat. They look good. They check it off the box. They go to work and, kind of apply what they've learned here about themselves at work.
Right.
That's always the cool thing. It's the, how does that translate from here to being a better mom or being a better husband or being a better manager or boss, any of those things.
Yeah.
That's the unique thing about like what CrossFit kind of does.
And you're just super aware of what each client needs or is looking for.
Yeah.
That's what makes a good gym or like what, like, oh, I don't know. I mean, good, like that when you're in tune with what people are wanting. And you're not just like, this is the program, take it or leave it.
Right. And it's the reason why we have multiple different programs, right? Like we could have just said, this is CrossFit, this is it, in or out, but we have a barbell club, we have a boot camp for people that don't want to use a barbell.
Yeah.
We have nutrition, and we've evolved to kind of meet the needs of what people want, while still giving them what they need, right? But yeah, so I think the other thing is, because CrossFit in general, we have a higher price point. It allows us to keep our membership numbers lower.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But it also helps us not need to constantly onboard 20 new people a month to fill the 20 people that are leaving, because those 20 people a month aren't leaving.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to fill it. And if you're smart about how you manage your expenses, keep your overhead low, you can really begin to make an impact on people at a deeper level, because if they're a member for a year or 2 years, like, you really get to know that person.
Yeah.
And you're not spending all your time and energy on the 20 new people every month.
Right. Where can we take this next? And before the cameras were rolling, like, you shared that you just signed another 3-year lease.
Yeah.
Right. So where can we take Illumine next?
So, it's interesting. 6 years in, we hit our 6-year anniversary. We signed a 3-year lease. So the story of Illumine went from 1,700 square foot space in 2013. Let's call it May of 2013.
Sure.
October of 2013, we moved into this space, and I was still at CDW making the corporate dollars, and we expanded to 17,000 square feet.
Wow.
So fast forward, when we renewed our lease, we opted not to renew the big back room.
Yes.
Which used to house our boot camp, our kids program, all of that stuff. And we decided to kind of bring it back a little bit, make it a little more cozy. Let's remodel, let's rearrange everything, let's optimize the space that we do have. And so we have 10,000 square feet moving forward. And really, it's just about focusing on just quality of what we deliver, rather than growth and making it bigger.
Interesting. Yeah.
But it's also a reflection of my growth as a human being, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think there's going to be an opportunity to eventually scale maybe outside of these walls?
No. And I did it We opened a second location in Northbrook 3 years ago, and we actually just sold it in January.
Okay.
So we had a tough time with the village in opening, and we had a big 5-month delay.
Okay.
Kind of a really, really difficult time, but what I learned through it was I didn't want that, and I didn't want to be an operator and a manager of 2 locations.
You want to be on the ground.
You know, it was really interesting. It was like this constant feeling of guilt, of you know, taking away from this place and not giving enough to the other place, but also, you know, not giving enough to this place, not giving enough to that place. And there was, you know, different cultures, different members.
Yeah.
They were far enough, and it was more difficult, and it didn't align with the life I was trying to build for myself.
For sure.
Yeah.
Did you think? What if you had someone that you trusted or that was capable?
Yeah,
Right.
and that's where what we had thought we had, it didn't work in the way we thought it was going to work.
Okay.
So that pulled me back into managing and operating both locations.
Yeah.
But you know,
it's stretched in different ways.
yeah, it's
right?
really
I get
tough.
it.
But
I have a hard time letting go too, right? But I'm sure you've built up, especially in your coaches that you can rely on, coaches that you don't have to be in the same room for when they're actually coaching.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the goal, is to be able to trust them so you can let go and step back.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of lifestyle you want to build for yourself.
for sure, and that's what we have here, and it's amazing. But when I was building the second place,
Right.
especially with the delay, it forced me to like really go
Yeah.
back in, right?
Yeah.
And it's not something that I enjoyed.
Okay. For those that maybe have aspirations of maybe just not opening up a CrossFit gym, but a gym in general, are there any like kind of things that you would throw out there, like recommendations? Should they start in their own garage? Like how should they proceed?
Yeah. So the 2 biggest lessons that I've learned in the last 5 years, 6 years maybe. So there's maxims, the Greek maxims written by the sages,
Oh.
the ancient Greek sages,
Oh.
and there's hundreds of them. They're words to live by, just beautiful stuff. And above the pillar of the Oracle of Delphi, or the Temple of Apollo,
Okay.
there's only 2. So those were, you know, noted as the 2 most important maxims. And one was know thyself,
Okay.
and then number 2 was nothing in excess.
Okay.
And those were my 2 biggest life lessons in the last 5 years, was just really understanding what my strengths are, understanding what I wanted for a life for myself, so I wouldn't make too many concessions for who I was or what I wanted. And then nothing in excess was, you know, kind of understanding like more is not better in terms of like, you know, how big the location is,
Right,
or how amazing it is to a point, or how many locations you have.
Right.
It really is
That's
nothing
interesting.
in excess. You know, just if you're going to open small, and don't go bigger until you absolutely burst at the seams and have to. And then when you do go bigger, don't go, you know, extremely
Okay.
bigger. Like just try to find that next size up,
Right.
but always really, really, really live
Right.
within your means. So I'm more of like a risk taker.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know, I wouldn't say gambler in terms of like going to the casino,
A calculated risk.
but calculated risk taker,
Yeah,
gambler.
yeah,
I'm an
yeah.
entrepreneur at heart. So, but you know, you learn through experience that it's best to keep it small and manageable, and
Yeah.
really think about the life that you want for yourself,
Yeah.
because you could build something that you kind of feel trapped within, right?
What do you think the perception was when, let's say you started with this space, the 10,000 square feet, and then you actually wanted to expand to the 17? Like, let's say you started there and then you wanted to expand. Do you think people would perceive that as, oh, Brian's selling out, Brian just wants more clients, Brian just, or, I mean, it can probably go with both ways. Like, they're genuinely happy. But I'm just thinking about when you said, like, you're focusing on retaining the 20 instead of just, like, continuing to onboard and on-ramp
Yeah,
the new 20.
yeah.
So I wonder how people, like, perceive that as a negative or a positive, like, as just, oh, Brian's a businessman now. He's just selling out. He just wants to expand.
I think it really depends on
on the person.
on the
I'm sure,
person
yeah.
and their life experience. Because what I've learned also is things that are obvious and that make sense to me as an experienced entrepreneur. For people who have never opened their own businesses, like their lens is very
Right,
different, and it's
right.
not bad. It's not their fault.
So know thyself.
But
Yeah.
people kind of do the dummy math of like, oh, you have 200 members, $200, you're rich.
Oh,
And
no.
they do the math in their head.
Yeah.
But they don't realize, rent could be 15 grand, payroll could be 15 grand, and expenses could be 8 grand.
Right,
And it's
right.
like, well, you think
Costs add up.
this is what it is, but
Yeah.
actually in the back, there's a lot more to it.
Right.
And some people have never run a business, never had to look at money. Maybe they work for the government or something
For
where
sure.
it's a different thing, right? They never have
Yeah.
to worry about, producing their own paycheck.
Right.
Right. They
Right.
just show up to work and they get paid.
Right.
As an entrepreneur, it's the exact opposite. And also you have to make sure your employees get paid. And
Right.
everybody gets paid, normally before you do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can with this like camaraderie, there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration with other gyms, or maybe like hosting. You've hosted events here.
Yeah, we used to host big CrossFit competitions,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. The landscape of CrossFit, they still do those. Our gym specifically, I'm 38. Most of our members are 30 through 60. So we're not to say we're not competitive.
Okay.
But we're definitely more of like the family-oriented gym. There's kids running around everywhere. So we'll still do them for fun.
Yeah.
But there's definitely like CrossFit gyms in the city that are like very hardcore.
Interesting. How else can CrossFit gyms put themselves out there? Is kind of social media the only way these days, or maybe word of mouth is still strongest? I've felt that with every interview I've had.
Yeah.
But within social media, like what is it? Just posting workouts on social? Like what can we? How can you engage and inspire and motivate people to get off the couch?
By showing your existing clients' results and documenting that, right? So if Sally lost 20 pounds, document that, grab a client story, and that's your best marketing, period.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, oh, look at how tough this workout was. You're going to love this gym, because that's not what works, right?
No. What about breakdowns of like movements, like little things like that?
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, you're always having to constantly...
Not that you have the time. I don't know. You probably don't even have the time to do all that, but
Yeah, or like, is it relevant, or
Right.
do they have context? So like most of the people that we want, or our ideal clients, are just coming off the couch and they want to lose weight. They want to feel better, look better, move better.
right.
So me breaking down the snatch is like way too many layers back in the onion
gotcha,
before they
yeah.
need it. So, but what I would talk about with them is like, I'm going to show all of our clients that have seen massive results and lost a ton of weight, show people who have had success with
Yeah.
like lowering their blood pressure, cholesterol. That's the stuff that really matters to me. And then those are the clients that really appreciate what we do, right?
Okay.
Because we're changing their life, not just like, making their biceps bigger, right?
What else are you interested in doing with you? Because you mentioned mindset earlier, right? So you're becoming kind of like a consultant for leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I just launched the company actually last year, but I'm really kind of focusing on it heavily just as a few months ago, called Expressing the Genius Within.
Okay.
And it's really just helping leaders understand themselves, so really self-awareness, building a culture of self-awareness, but also helping leaders understand their people and their unique behaviors and what drives them, what their needs are, and then helping their employees understand their own behaviors, right? So to help them understand themselves, and then help the employees understand the leader. So,
Yeah.
Through all this and building a team of 25, kind of, realizing that self-awareness is so key to every aspect of relationships and business.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the times, you don't quite know who you are until you experience things. There's a Sanskrit phrase called neti neti. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
So it's their process of negation, and it's the way they find God, and it's
Okay.
through negation. It's not this, it's not this. Like, you can't name what God is.
Okay.
But really, it applies to self-awareness too. But I think, by experiencing life and saying, I tried this, but that wasn't it. I tried this, but that wasn't it. That's the longer, more painful path. And I think there's, obviously there's psychometric tools out there that can help you arrive at that much quicker.
Right,
And the
right.
quicker you arrive at that, the less concessions you make for who you are. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to pigeonhole yourself into like, I'm just a general manager, or I'm just a manager, or I'm just this. But it allows you to really talk about your strengths with confidence, and it allows you to say no to more things that are far outside of your strengths. And that, I think, actually helps with, this huge focus on mental health.
Yeah.
And it's not only just like our lifestyle, but it really is stress. It's a lot of it's in the workforce of doing things that aren't in line with like who we are and how we
Right.
do things, or maybe it's purpose-driven stuff, right?
Okay.
So it's fun to be able to show leaders that, because, especially as an entrepreneur, like when you open a business, you're everything. And you kind of lose yourself in that because you have to do everything and you have to be everything to everybody.
Wow.
And then once you've done that, it almost like freezes you in time with people, because they
That's the snapshot of like how
that's
they
a snapshot of
saw
how
you,
they saw you. And
Right,
when you
right.
try to say, no, that's not me, they're like, no, this is you.
Right,
This
right.
like, don't change my view of the world, because without you being this, that adds a lot of confusion for like my view of the world now.
Right.
So that's my big focus, is really just like helping leaders with self-awareness, and that, builds empathy, compassion, and understanding within their entire team.
That's amazing. I'm just, how do you put yourself out there to be this consultant? Are you knocking on doors, or how does that work?
So luckily,
Or you've probably built a network through,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
so luckily within our gym, I mean, there's so many leaders, and this really attracts like, moms, dads, all of that stuff, but also like business leaders, CEOs, directors of
Okay.
sales, all of that stuff,
Amazing.
who've really kind of like, seen my growth as an individual, also seen my focus really change to mindset and self-awareness and all of this over the last couple of years, because I love fitness and I love CrossFit, but it's also just like it is for them. It's a vehicle for me to continue to grow as a human being, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't freeze at just CrossFit. I'm continuing to use what I learned about myself through this and help other people in other ways, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then, just creating content and getting your message out, letting
Yeah.
people know you're there,
Right.
solving problems, teaching people how you're going to solve problems for them.
Right. It's funny because some people don't even know that they have the problem.
Right.
And sometimes I have the same issue. It's like I don't want to come off as like too preachy
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. I think...
But maybe your message will just attract the people that are looking for that.
Exactly.
Right?
When you can talk about a specific pain point, let's say hiring.
Yeah.
So, most people, when they're hiring people, there's like there's the resume, right? And the resume might look good. Then the interview comes in. They're like, yeah, I can do this. I'll
Right,
do,
right.
and all of that stuff checks out. But once you've experienced it not work out too many times, you look in the mirror and you say, okay, well, is it me? Is it them? Or is it the way like I'm kind of interacting with them? So you really, as a leader, have to like do that. So when you've owned a business and you've hired, and then you've had, I used to wrongly think like, oh God, like how can people not get it? And it was because I would expect other people to look at the world through my lens, and they'd be like, Brian, like I don't know what to do. What should I do? Help me out. I'm like, well, here's what I do. Do it the way I do it, and it should work because that's what I've done. And they'll come back and say, well, I just don't know. I'm like, well, you're not trying hard enough, right? But that was my limited view of the world 6 years ago.
Right.
Now, especially after things not working out one too many times in terms of like having a great human being, them saying they want the position or the role, and then having like really good systems and processes and SOPs, and it not working or not aligning, that happening one too many times, you're like, hold on, there's got to be like a better way for me to do this, for me to hire objectively, but also for me to set people up for success and not set them up for failure.
Okay.
So I use the analogy of starting lineup for a basketball team a lot.
Yeah.
And so you have point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. And they all have these unique attributes that allow them to play their position well. You know, point guard's small and fast, centered's super big, gets rebounds really well. So what happens when you pull them off the bench or pull them off the court, put them on the bench, and mix them and match them in positions? And you put the center at point guard and the power forward at shooting guard, and you throw them back onto the court. They're all playing the game that they love still, right?
Yeah.
But now they're going to be like really ineffective in the position that they're playing.
Okay.
The coach is going to be upset, the fans are going to be upset, and the player is going to feel ineffective in his role and really kind of feel beat up every day going to work, right?
Yeah.
And it's painfully obvious if you talk about it in the analogy of the basketball starting five.
Yeah.
But in life, like, it's not as obvious. It's our strengths, right?
Yeah.
With the psychometric tests, so they measure, you know, your behaviors, needs, and drives, measure your general cognitive ability. They measure kind of your natural mode of operandi, or how you naturally do things.
Right.
And when you have that data, then you can better align people with opportunities. And it's like this aha moment. It's the light bulb that goes off in the person's mind when they're like, oh yes, this is me, and this is why all of this stuff didn't work for me. And once you are able to really kind of like show them that about themselves, they begin to own it and, you know, really begin to double down on who they are and what they're good at, and flourish as long as they're in the right position.
Right.
I don't care, you know, if you're a point guard, I don't care if you practice rebounding all you want and all the skills and drills that you want to become a better center. You're always going to be a very mediocre center at best, probably the worst center on the team.
Yeah.
But what if you just realize you're a point guard from the get-go, and then you just go all in on your strengths and just follow that lane and practice the skills and drills to be the best point guard you can be? It's awesome. It's amazing.
That's interesting. Yeah. So with your weaknesses, do you ever work on your weaknesses, or are you just kind of like doubling down on your strengths then?
So always double down on your strengths. So when it comes to entrepreneurs specifically, you have the opportunity to delegate, right?
Oh, yeah.
Understanding like, okay, is this the best use of my time, energy, and strengths, effort? Or is there somebody else who's better suited for this, who can do it in half the time, who actually lights up while doing that? Because, you know, just because I am drained by a specific task, or I procrastinate and I don't want to do it, it doesn't mean somebody else doesn't light up when they do that. And when you begin to really understand that, then you can delegate freely, because you're like, oh, this is not like a burden to them. This is like their favorite thing to do, and they're amazing at it, right?
Yeah.
But when you're working outside of your strengths, if you feel it, right? You feel just like the drag, the drain.
And that's just tough at the beginning,
especially
if you got to do everything at the
right.
beginning.
And as an entrepreneur, it's really important, right? Like, so in the corporate world, you know, there's positions who, you know, if you're in sales, you're probably going to have certain characteristics. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed right off the bat. But you can really begin to drill in, even when it comes to sales. Like, are you a hunter? Do you thrive with like going out there and building your book of business from 25 grand to, you know, the infinite ceiling of potential growth? Or are you somebody who prefers process-driven sales, black and white? Give me a checklist to follow. Give me a script. And, you know, maybe I'll make less money, but I value safety and security more than that unlimited ceiling, right? And you have to know who you are in order to do well in whatever you do, right?
Okay, damn. Brian, that's kind of much all I had.
Okay.
All I had. I mean, you shared a lot about not only CrossFit, but leadership and mindset and mentality. I love it.
That's awesome.
I love to see the growth. Right. So, I mean, I'll be keeping an eye on it. I'm glad you guys have been flourishing within the last 6 years, and you guys just signed another 3-year lease. I'll definitely be stopping by, you know, sooner or later. But
come in for a workout.
Thank you guys. Thank you, like, for doing this.
Yeah,
and spending
thank
the
you.
time and sharing the experience. You know, before, like, years ago when I stopped into the gym, I don't know. There's just this perception of CrossFit of like, oh, like these are Olympic complicated lifts, and like, why are the general public doing this? Because it'll just hurt yourself. But it's so cool to hear how the on-ramping stuff works and how you're changing people's lives, not only through physical activity, but through everything, through mindset and nutrition and everything. And you're doing a lot of good work, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, we're lucky to be able to do it. So
yeah. All right. Well, thanks guys for tuning in. Stay curious. Habla aloha. see you guys in the next episode. Awesome.
Cool.
That was it.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool.